Rise and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to remind you all that our mission is to encourage everyone to see and be their personal best through successful learning experiences. Become your best. Now, I'd like to amend our agenda and consent agenda as an order of business. And the amendment being that the amount in item C below is $2,568,237.86. So I need a motion to amend our agenda and consent.
I'll second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
And now, what I need is to consider the approval of the consent agenda, or as our amended agenda, to approve the minutes from the October 21st, 2025 Board of Education meeting, approve financial report for the period of July 1, 2025 through October 31st, 2025, and approve bills for the period of October 1, 2025 through October 31st, 2025 in the amount of $2,568,237.86. I need a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda as adopted.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that, Katrina. Now, Board District Leadership Strategic Planning Legislative Update. Scott, take us there.
All right, good evening, everybody. We had the opportunity to meet yesterday morning with our local legislators. Brief updates from all of them. Lindy Brill of the 27th said that the Assembly would be taking the floor once again Wednesday, which is tomorrow. Quite a few education-related bills are on the docket, and we'll see how many of those advance to committee. Also, you may have heard recently that a new law was just passed regarding cell phone use in schools, not allowing them to be utilized during instructional time. And we'll have more to come as we go toward the end of this year, because if we are going to make any changes, that would have to take place in advance of next school year. But in the meantime, there's also a secondary bill that's being proposed that provides a little more detailed guidance saying essentially bell to bell, students would not be able to utilize them during lunch, passing, what have you. So we'll let the dust settle a little bit and then see what action we propose to the board come spring or summer. Joe Sheehan of the 26th, he is very active regarding teacher shortage and ways that we can address that. One of the things that he's working on, which really is treating the symptom, not the cause potentially, but allowing student teachers to utilize summer school as their student-teacher experience. And so that's something that's being pursued. But again, he's also forming a committee to really get to the root of our teacher shortage and what we need to be doing at the state level to address that issue and not just the symptoms of it. And Devin Lemahue mentioned that the Senate takes the floor today, so they took the floor, past tense, today, looking at bills to end the governor's 400-year veto, advancing that. The end of the fall season is right around the corner, and then he just mentioned that they'll be back in session January, February, March for the spring session. So that is the legislative update.
All right.
Do we have a summary of what the cell phone bill is now as passed?
Yes. And I mean, I can provide that to you. I don't, the gist of it is that you may not utilize your phone during instructional time. So it's really the definition of instructional versus non-instructional time.
Okay.
Which is in
And how is that
alignment.
different from our policy currently?
Our policy currently essentially leaves it up to the teacher as to how they want to enforce it. Basically, most teachers, I would say, have an active permission, so you need the teacher's permission in order to utilize your phone during class. Otherwise, the expectation is it is put away. Some teachers do have in their room the pockets on the back of their door for students to drop them off at the start of class, so they're not on them, so to speak. So it's by the classroom teacher and his or her discretion.
Do teachers ever use them as tools? I'm just thinking, I don't know if they can, like calculators and things like that,
Yeah, it's
or
more.
not.
Yeah, good question. Some specific apps, I know, for example, in science and also art, there are applications. And Dina, feel free to chime in as well, but most of the things that are needed for instructional purposes can be achieved with the laptops that the kids have.
Got it.
So it's more rare occurrences that they're needed.
Okay.
So with the law being passed, does it say when it is supposed to start being enforced?
I believe it needs to be passed if you need to update your policy September of 2026. I can't remember the specific date, but September is what rings a bell. But certainly, we would have that as part of our handbook approval in summer to make sure we're ahead of it.
Okay.
What's the district's opinion on the law? Are we in favor of it as a staff, or is it?
Well, when you say the district's opinion,
Yeah.
I think you're going to have varying opinions. I do think that students having the ability to access information that they need on their laptop suffices. I know, for example, myself, if I have my phone in my pocket right now, I don't, it's over there, but if it was in my pocket and it would buzz, it's a distraction, right? So kids have grown up with this distraction at this point, and I think to the greatest extent possible that we can keep the focus on active engagement in class. It's important. So again, that's more Scott Steer talking.
I like it. All right. Anything else? Thanks, Scott. Now, we need to approve a WASB delegate and alternative for the 2026 assembly. And does anyone,
I went last year.
and did you enjoy it?
I liked it. I did. I would encourage everybody to experience it if they can. It's during the day, during the week, so that can sometimes obviously be a challenge for people. What's the date?
26th, I thought.
January 21st through the 21st.
I'm sorry, the 20?
January 21st through the 23rd.
Okay. And the 23rd is when we need a delegate there, right? Because that's when it's the last day that, I believe. Isn't it?
No, it's usually
Oh, it's
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
It's usually
Oh, okay,
Wednesday.
all right. I was thinking it was last day
No.
when I was here.
No.
All right.
So the 21st is,
21st, first day, 22nd would be the date that we would need.
January 21st is the Wednesday.
Oh,
Yes.
it is?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
all right.
So the first day.
First day. So that's what we need, a delegate and an alternate. Who's not done it? I've done it.
I've done it.
You've done it a lot. Kathy's done it. Aaron, if you...
And I prefer not to, because at this point, I do not know when we'll be leaving to go see the grandkids. So I may have already been gone and back, but I don't know until I get my dates on the calendar for driving or flying or what.
But Sally, I believe you concur that it's a great experience.
Oh, it is,
for,
absolutely.
Yes, Janelle
Yep.
as well
Yes.
would
And I have
concur. And
limited
Kathy
dates.
already recommended that
Yeah.
it's a great experience for school board
Great.
members.
Just a great.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if you go, you could take your spouse.
I think a couple of years I went.
If in fine print.
I don't mind. I'll go again if you can't go.
Or do we appoint Tony since he's not here?
That would be
we
aggressive.
could also leave it as I can be the backup if it gets closer. I mean, we're talking 2 months out. Some people's
So it's-
calendar
all right.
might change. I'm a little more flexible, so I'm willing to be the backup. If
Okay.
somebody wants to say, yeah, I'll do it, but
But I'm
I need some wiggle room.
50-50 So,
I just want one-on-one time first before I make a decision, because I have no idea what to expect. So I don't want to say yes to something of not knowing what to expect, which we don't need to have that discussion here.
Yeah.
So if it's with you, or if it's last with Kathy, or whatever, just,
What we primarily do, that we get the list of all the proposed resolutions, and we, as a group here, review all that. So you go as our delegate saying Plymouth says yes, Plymouth says no.
Sure.
And you're in one of a
You're
group
in-
of 400
Yeah.
saying yes or no.
it's really what you can do around that and see the conflict.
that's my
Wash,
push.
and, yeah.
Any one of
It's a
us
cool
can say yes or
experience.
no.
It's a
So
cool experience, you see the different
Yeah.
resources and what's going on at different, you know.
And you
And
still
what's
have some
important
time to
in
take
other
some classes
Right.
when you're not in session.
So,
When do you need to know by that?
I just need to know probably by mid-December, because I'll order, or I have to purchase your tickets.
oh, okay, so if do we wait till committee of the whole to fill the position, is that all right? All right, so we'll table this then until committee of the whole, and Aaron can answer questions, we can answer questions. Maybe it'll be you, maybe it'll be Tony. You've done it, right?
Yeah, I'm on board.
All right,
Need me.
okay, all right, so we'll table it for a committee of the whole, and we'll make that decision. Let's move on then to academic pillar of excellence, KPIs. Dina.
All right, so last year we worked on narrowing down our KPIs and determining our measures. So I am kicking off the first KPI goal action plan, which is the one I selected, or we selected as a district, was the student achievement in ELA. Lots of other things are going on. That's not our only focus, but it is a main focus. So as determined when we decided how we were measuring that, we were going to look at the achievement measures, the percentage of students meeting grade level expectations, meeting or advanced, on the state forward exam for grades 3 through 8, because those are the grades that measure that. So why does this KPI matter? Reading proficiency predicts success across all of our academic areas, right? If we can't read, we're going to probably struggle in social studies and science and math, so that we definitely want to make sure that our students are proficient. Literacy achievement supports our graduation rates. State and local assessments ensure consistency, and we have lots of different measures that can help us in determining how to use and access that information, and that our early reading skills reduce that long-term intervention need. So we want to make sure that we provide all those supports that we can, so we don't have to add additional supports down the road. How do we measure the measurement system? So if we take a look, the forward exam, that is done yearly, and I shared on the spreadsheet here when it's reported to the board. So I'm sharing this action plan now, but years ago, we determined we wanted to have a triennial data update. So just to remind you that even though this KPI, we report out at the end of the year, that actually we have different checkpoints throughout. So we have that forward exam, and last year, the results came out in April, which was the first ever. It's typically in September, so it was really nice to get that data to you earlier. And present that, and hopefully next year we can do it even earlier. The Ames Web Plus, which is mandatory by the state for grades 4K through 3, and that assesses that reading, and it determines whether or not a student would have a personalized reading plan. That's done 3 times a year, and I report out the growth for that in January and then in June. iReady is the screener we use in grades 6th through 8th grade. And we do that, again, 3 times a year, and we share that growth. And then the ACT is done yearly. So those are the different measures that we can use to help monitor our growth. So the action plan overview, there's 3 main categories that we're going to focus in on. And first one is building our data level teams. Next is interventions. And then the third is the quality, instructional quality and capacity. So those first two really sort of focus around managing our data and how we interpret the data and use that to guide our instruction. And then that third one is about our curriculum, how our curriculum is taught and the quality of our instructors. So building level data teams. This is something that we've talked about quite a few times already in the last few months. And we spent a lot of time last year developing what those teams would be, who would be made up on the different teams, what they would be talking about, the agendas, all that good stuff. So we first need to identify those assessments for universal and progress monitoring. So universal is what we assess all of our kids on. So the day-to-day, our formative, our summative, those different types of assessments. Progress monitoring is when we have students who might have some gaps, and how do we monitor and progress their growth to make sure that they are learning and improving. We want to train our teams about those different assessments, and we have quite a few new tools over the last few years, and this year in specific, that deal with our reading implementation, the HMH, into reading, which is grades kindergarten through 5th grade. And I'll tell you more about the WAGL, AMIRA, all those good ones in a few minutes. We want to establish, and we have established monthly meeting cycles. And that part I sat in on one today at one of the elementary schools, which was with our school social worker, our principal, the counselor, and the school psychologist. And it was a guided MIN team, so it was looking at like our absenteeism. We're looking at behavioral, any of our specific needs of students, and then those conversations generated around those topics, and then that sort of filters down into the meetings with the teachers to share out some of that data as well. So we have those supported throughout the district, having those agendas, making sure that we are calibrating and all on the same page. And one unique situation that happened this year is CISA 7 had the opportunity, they wrote a grant and received funding to support districts in implementing data implementation, which was perfect, and we jumped on board. And we have Ted Settler, who comes from CISA 7, and he'll sit in on various of our data meetings and provide us feedback, giving us constructive criticism. And then the nice feature is he can share what other districts are doing as well. So that has been a really wonderful opportunity for us, and he's at all of the different levels. So that's been a great opportunity. And then we want to calibrate those expectations. So we want to make sure what's happening at Fairview is also happening at Horizon, and that we can ensure that we have that equity throughout. And one of those examples is with our HMH implementation. It's at all those different levels, all those different buildings, but we want to make sure that teachers are using it in the appropriate manner and in a similar manner for how it was intended. So staying with that building level teams, data tools to standardize. Again, we want to make sure that when we're looking at our data, do you have a question?
No.
I didn't number the pages, Bob. I have to apologize for that. So we have a few different resources that we're using. The first one is Panorama, and this is our second year of using Panorama. And Panorama is like a data warehouse. So all of the students' testing flows into that, as well as their attendance, behavior, all of that goes in. So when we look at a student's information, it's all in one spot. I can see everything about that student. I can go to previous years. I can see trends within grade levels, within classrooms. So we use that as a form of guiding our discussions. Aimsweb Plus is, again, that is something that is mandated by the state, but we do use it in 4th and 5th grade as well, and it's not mandated at those levels. It can also be used when we talked about the differences between the universal assessments, so that we give in our classroom instruction versus that progress monitoring. So the kids who have those gaps, it can be used for progress monitoring and monitoring students who might have some setbacks. Then we have iReady, which again is that screener at the middle school that we give 3 times a year. And that helps us again to look at those different points and to monitor that growth and see if there's any trends in areas that we may be struggling in, and looking at our strengths. And then finally at the elementary level, looking at Waggle and Amira. These are 2 new resources to us because they go aligned with our new reading program. So learning how to use those, how they're going to play a role, we're learning as we go. We are finding that it gives a plethora of information. Now we need to whittle it down to what's the best bang for our buck, what's going to give us the most information to really guide our instruction. The second area that we're focusing in on is the interventions. And when we talk about interventions, we often use tiers. We use tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You probably noticed the green, yellow, and red because those are colors that I've used over the years when documenting student growth. Those do align with the tiers. So tier 1 is universal instruction. That is what our classroom teachers, the curriculum guides them. That is that core instruction. You want 80 to 90% of your students to be in that tier 1. That's where the majority should fall. Tier 2 is about 5 to 10% of your students, and that's where we start looking at our data and we say, we see some gaps here. We see some legs in, where they should be academically. And then that's where you find those targeted instructions. That's where we look at those interventions and say, this student needs this resource to help them to close that gap. And then tier 3 is where we have those intensive interventions, where again, maybe 5 to 10% of our students fall, but they are significantly behind grade level and might need some really targeted, responsive support systems for them. So when we look at that alignment of those tiers, we want to make sure that we have unified entry and exit criteria, so we know who falls into tier 2, at what percentage would they go into a tier 2 and get those supports. We want to make sure that they have consistent weekly minutes, so that if a student is identified, we want to make sure that they are getting consistent support throughout that week, and it's not like, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. We want to make sure it's unified. We want to make sure that we're using evidence-based practices, that we're using really quality resources, and I think that explains itself. And then progress checks. We want to make sure that we're looking at that data, that we're not just, here you go, we're going to work. We want to make sure that we can track that growth. Looking at then finally the instructional quality and capacity, that's where it falls, right? I mean, our quality instructors are what make the difference. So when we're working with our HMH, our reading implementation, we have been working with a literacy expert from CISA 7 for the last 1.5 years now. And she has been so instrumental in helping us plan out. Before the year ended last year, we had our whole year of professional development planned. And we've really stuck true to that. So making sure that we really are thoughtful in how we've implemented this new reading program was important. With that, as I mentioned, the digital programs, Waggle and Amira, the integration, sometimes you go slow to go fast. Right now, the most important thing is that we understand how to implement that curriculum piece. The bells and whistles, the digital integration can come, but we want to make sure our teachers are on pace, pacing well with those lessons, because when it's new, it might take a little bit longer. We want to make sure that they understand the ins and outs, because there's so many pieces to it. And we want to make sure that our students are engaged in learning. So I sort of look at it as a Lego analogy. You get a box of Legos, right? You tear into it and all the packages fall out. We want to make sure that you take the packages in order to build it, and that you don't take the ending package or the package 15 because it has some really cool pieces in it. No, we want to make sure that we start with a solid base and that we build that Lego, we build that curriculum and make sure that we're providing those supports along the way. So we've had some really great experiences Is it frustrating at times for staff? Absolutely. Anything new is and brings challenges, but we're trying to make sure we provide as many supports as possible. And in strengthening that instructional practice, we have lots of different things in place. So coaching cycles, our reading specialists who have been here before and spoke to you are amazing. They talk all the time, they share resources with each other, and they are in there working with the teachers side by side. They probably know the curriculum better than the teachers. They recently had they had spent 2 days just going to each of the different classrooms throughout the district. So they went into schools other than their own to see how other teachers were doing it so they could bring back those different ideas and tips and tricks to their own buildings and share with their teachers. So those peer observations are really important, and that's our next step, is then the reading specialist will step in and sub for those teachers so they can go to other teachers' classrooms. So a third grade teacher can go to a different school's third grade, see what's happening, have some good conversations with those teachers. Vertical alignment is important. So we want to make sure that it's great when you're going, in your own grade level, but what's happening before you and what's happening after you. It's important to know that as well. Small group PD is something that you think, oh, you just throw a kid in a small group and they're good to go. There's a lot more to that, in that making sure they're engaged, making sure that they know their expectations and that the activities are well planned so that when a teacher is working with a different small group, that those students that aren't directly with the teacher are still learning. And then assessment literacy, we're learning there's a lot of assessments that come with this new program, but which ones are going to be the best for our students. And I want to say that I'm talking a lot reading, obviously, because that's our goal, but to sidebar a little bit, when it comes to math, for instance, our high school math teachers are implementing at the algebra level IM, which is the math program we use at our middle school. And they are going to, on our next PD day, are going to be going out to a different district to watching teachers in a different district that have been using it for a few years. So that peer modeling and peer observations is really important, and we're making sure that's happening in different places other than just reading. As I mentioned before, we've had a lot of CISA 7 collaboration, and it's not just with our teachers. My administrative team has been working with the coaches as well. So when Ted comes in for the data implementation, he has been meeting with the principals individually, helping them, talking through questions that they have and how their team structures have been working. I have Charla, who is our reading expert. She's coming in next week to work with the principals to go through our new reading program and helping them so that when they go into the classroom and make observations, they can give really good constructive feedback to the teachers so that they know what they should be looking for and what those expectations are. So she's going to come do a session, a workshop with them. And then she's going to come a few weeks later and actually do walkthroughs with the principals. And, like they would go as if they're doing an observation, and then she's going to work through with them how that works. And I'll be participating in that as well. That intervention alignment, like I said, Ted has played a really important role. And then our leadership collaboration, again, like they work well together, but how can we help them grow as a team and be really strong instructional leaders? We have a retired administrative mentor that comes in and has been working with our team as well. And just somebody to bounce ideas off of and talk about and process different situations. So continuing to just build them. They don't know this yet, but at my recent CISA meeting for curriculum and instruction, I was chit-chatting with some groups, and there's a local district that the administrator was talking about how amazing their data teams are going, and that the conversations they have are so rich and so deep. Like, can I bring my principals and have them observe? And she's like, absolutely. So we're going to have a little go and check it out and do some observations and learn from people and create sort of those personal learning networks right within our own neighborhood. So providing that instructional feedback is important, and I want to make sure that those administrators know how to do that and build their capacity and do it better than they're doing it now, just so, because there's always room to grow. Using Panorama is something that we continue to learn because it's such a, there's so many resources within that program, that data warehouse, and how we can use it effectively, especially with our interventions. Monitoring to fidelity, as we want to make sure that our administrators are helping to make sure that's in place, and then understanding those different assessment systems and how it all comes together. So our expected outcomes, we want to make sure that we're increasing proficiency. That's what it's all about. We want to make sure that our students are being successful. We want to have consistent use of our resources. We want to have stronger tier 2 and 3 alignment. And when I continue talking with the state report card, you'll understand that piece and why that's so important, because it's definitely something that I believe our state report card points out for us. We want our staff to have improved practices and build their capacity. And then clear documentation, so we can explain to parents and have clear understandings of where students are at and how they're growing. Questions on the KPI?
Questions?
It's very thorough.
Extremely thorough.
How are the teachers feeling about all this? Is it overwhelming, or are they glad you're pacing it?
That was my word, overwhelming.
Yeah, it seems overwhelming, but you have to remember it's in bits and pieces. Like building a Lego set, we're trying. You have some people who, no matter what, are going to dive in head first and just want to dig into everything, and they're comfortable doing that. We've tried to make sure that those people don't necessarily overwhelm others. So by having those consistent meetings and saying, no, it's okay. If you're not using Waggle or Mira, you don't have to. We're going to get to that. But then the nice thing is the people who dig in head first, they get to be the ones that will be teaching other people and have figured out all the tips and tricks and, ironed out all the wrinkles when that happens. When it came to the teaming structures, some levels, no problem. Some levels, like, whoa, what is this? This is a lot. I feel like we're meeting a lot. But again, it's going back to making it meaningful. And as long as they're finding it meaningful and it's benefiting their classroom, which is interesting, the meeting I was at last week at the middle school, they just said, I'm really starting to see the reason for this. I'm seeing an impact. And there was a little bit of resistance, but that's human nature. Change is hard. So, yeah, a little bit of resistance in certain spots, but just like our students, you're going to get a little bit of everything. A little bit of every reaction you can get. But thank you, I appreciate that, and I know the staff would appreciate the fact that the concern of being overwhelmed.
Other questions?
Maybe I missed this, but how new is Waggle and Amira?
This year. They're brand new this year.
First time I've ever heard of these
Right.
programs.
They really haven't been, there's spots that people have been using them, but that's by choice. I'd rather people focus hard in on that instructional piece, the curriculum of HMH. They're two amazing resources. So the people who have started using them are very excited, and that's starting to trickle through. People are like, oh, that's what it does? Okay. So then, but we're not ready to roll it out as a whole. So I'd rather we focus in on learning how to roll out the overall instruction and curriculum.
Is Waggle Amira like a supplement to Ames Web? Because Ames Web is what determines when you are, as a child, put on a reading plan.
Right. They can be supplements. So Waggle, we have it in reading and math, and you can push out standards. It's similar to iReady. So you could take that screener and it would push out a path that, this is where you fall at, these are the next steps for your growth. So that's what Waggle does essentially. Mira is working on oral reading fluency, and it's actually AI-based, where a student reads into the microphone, reads into the program, and it spits out an analysis of the student's reading. So how they're sounding out the words, their flow of reading, all of it. It's pretty amazing. And the teachers who have been using it have said it is so many resources to helping them understand the reader. And it does, so it's called oral reading fluency, and that is something that Ames Web does test. So again, right now, as we work through this year with this, with our teaming structures and our assessments, we're trying to determine which one of these assessments is going to be best to give us the most information on how to guide us where the students' needs fall.
You're required by the state to do Ames Web, so that one's not going away.
What's that?
Ames Web Plus isn't going away because that's a state requirement.
That's state mandated. And most of those tests are pretty short. They're like a minute, 2 minutes, maybe 5-ish, 10-ish, and those you only give 3 times. The screener you give 3 times a year. There are other little sub-tests that we can use for interventions and progress monitoring, and we can use those all the way through high school, and that has been happening as well.
What is IXL?
IXL is another one of those supplementary. What we have found is that with iReady, we've used it in our district for many, many years. Kids have grown really tired of it. So we screen, because we want them to take the iReady really seriously. And we noticed the older they got, the less serious they took it. So then we didn't always get the best data. Now we use iReady to determine whether or not they need an intervention. In middle school, they found it was very impactful that a student who's like, I'm not going to really try. Well, guess what? Now you're in an intervention group. And we don't want that to be necessarily a bad thing, but now you have to do this very structured, a lot of one-on-one small group with a teacher to go back and look at those areas that you probably know how to do, you just didn't try. So there's been some pretty great conversations of kids saying, I'm going to try next time. So it'll be interesting to see in January where our kids fall at Riverview with that. So what happens, they take iReady, the 2 programs sync, and it creates personalized learning paths. So during our intervention time at Riverview, the students have personalized paths that if they're accelerated, it will push them into that acceleration. Some of the teachers, like one of the lessons they push out is what they're currently teaching to reinforce and to do a little bit of a formative check to see how the kids are doing. And they do that with both reading and math. High school uses IXL in 9th grade as the screener. So we're still determining how we want to push that out, but they gave the screener at the beginning of the year in math and ELA, and they found it really informational because they could see what skills the students were really strong in, and then they could identify skills where that, we have a group of kids who didn't get this one skill. So knowing that when they enter those units, probably gonna have to do a little bit of reteaching or extra time. They've also identified students that might need more interventions if they're not already identified as having any special needs. So they have an ELA and math interventionist during Panther time where they've pulled specific students and are working on specific skills. And again, I've heard great feedback that they're seeing growth in quite a few of those kids by having that one-on-one or small group time.
And then, I guess you mentioned the state report card, which is the Forward exam? Or is that different?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Forward and dynamic learning map, which is for alternative academic kids who are severely ID, intellectually disabled.
Okay. But mainly it's the Forward exam for most, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we'll get into that. That's part of it.
So you mentioned the state report card and the stronger tier 2/3 alignment being important. Is that because of the growth part of the report card? And we're not doing as well on the growth?
We could do better in growth. We could do better. Absolutely. And I'll share that, that's definitely an area that, as we've looked at the report card, we've identified as something that can make a huge impact. which is why last year already, we decided we wanted to do more with our interventions and just needed to step that up.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, Dina, thank you for that. Now, let's talk state report card.
All right. State report card. Now remember, this is the results from last year, so it's the 24-25 school year. And the purpose of the report card is to tell us how every child is performing. So that's measured through their achievement, to show how they're progressing, which is measured through their growth, to show how they're participating, and that's measured through their test and course participation, how they're completing high school, which is measured through graduation rates, and how they're engaging, which is measured through their attendance and absenteeism. So when we're looking at comparing the report card to previous report cards, it's really crucial to understand that this year's report card introduces a new context. So due to the recommendation of the DPI State Report Card Setting Panel from this summer, the 24-25 report card includes many elements that are not comparable to previous years. So this is primarily due to the underlying mathematical differences in how they calculated the scores. Despite the report card looking really similar, it's calculated very differently.
Does that mean our scorecard that we created that measures this is pretty well useless?
You mean our scorecard for our KPIs?
Yes.
No, because
We have-
those,
That's more broken up. So our KPI is broken up into different parts.
Okay.
Which hopefully there might be one or two, but again, we have that guidance that we can make those determinations, which work and don't. So the 24-25 report card establishes a new baseline for future reports. So it shows our current strengths, it informs us in helping us with our future goals, but it does not measure progress from the past. And that's just important as we look at this, or if you pull out report cards from past years. Some components are comparable from prior years, so that's specifically growth, attendance, and absenteeism, and then graduation rates. So those we can still compare. I did include, there's a chart that shows what you can compare and what you can, what isn't comparable. So that is included for you to, as you go through and look at the report card packets, which I shared with you. So the front page of the report card. Same components as in past years. There's the 5 different components. On the packet, you'll see there's the district details, which are highlighted in green, student groups highlighted in orange, our score summary, which is yellow, our priority area weights, and then our priority area scores. So the weighting of categories is state statutory. It is a statutory law that determines how this is weighted. So the categories are weighted based on enrollment rate of your economically disadvantaged students, the presence of 3rd and 8th grade, which is that data that's used to on-track graduation metric, and then the sufficient student enrollment to form a valid target group priority area. And I'll talk more about that later. So, why weight the categories? This is to ensure fairness across the different schools by balancing the achievement, which is a performance, and the growth, which is a progress, priority areas. It also aims to reflect student poverty levels. So for example, schools with a higher percentage of economically disadvantaged students will have growth weighted more heavily than achievement. Conversely, schools with a lower percentage of economically disadvantaged students will have achievement weighted higher than growth. So this system helps to account for all students, recognizing the effort and progress made by students in high poverty schools who have started behind academically. So it's to ensure that fairness is how the state has determined the calculating system. So if you take a look, I put the different weighted categories of our district and the 5 schools. So what differences, when you take a look at that page, what differences do you notice between the different schools?
Well, Parkview has crazy high achievement.
Yeah, the achievement growth box, parts of the pie chart are different between
Yeah.
Parkview and Trivia.
Actually, each one of our schools
Oh, yeah.
is weighted differently.
Yeah.
So not one of the schools, when they do the math calculations, every area is a little bit different. You'll notice that Fairview and Parkview do not have target groups. So their report cards are only measured on 3 priority versus the 4 priority areas. So Parkview's weighting leaned more towards their academic achievement, which was at 45.5% of their report or their score. And then Fairview, the weighting shifts achievement is down to 34.9% and the growth to 40.1%. And when we get to to Fairview's growth, it was 100%. So that flexibility helps to ensure that the score reflects the unique challenges and the successes of each unique student body. So I think it's important to know that when we look at how those scores came to be, they were all scored with just a little bit of a different calculation. So updating the rating category score ranges. Overall, every one of the categories increased by 1 point to raise it higher, with meeting expectations raised by 2 points. So our overall scores, the district met expectations. We were just shy of exceeding expectations. The high school, Riverview, and Horizon all met expectations as well. And then Parkview exceeded expectations, and Fairview significantly exceeded expectations. Moving on to student achievement scores.
Why did PHS, when getting a 70.2, only get meets expectations when the range is 70 to 82.9?
It was 71. So the bottom one is the updated on that chart. So last year,
Oh, okay.
they would have, yeah. So the achievement scores, we could spend probably a week here for me to go into detail about how each of these categories calculate, so I'm not going to go into deep detail. The achievement scores are calculated using a point-based proficiency model where all students who are enrolled for a full year are scored based on their overall proficiency. Those scores are then averaged to create a single year score. Normally, there's 3 years of achievement scores used to create a weighted multi-year average, but this year, only 2 years because of that change. Overall, our district's schools, all of our schools are above average and are considered high-performing schools. I noted on the bottom of the next few slides, like our HMH implementation. So, looking at our ELA scores, previous years, you can't compare, but previous report cards and previous data has told us that we wanted to improve our ELA, which is why we have that ELA implementation. I'm going to go on to student growth, and this is where our growth scores highlight where attention needs to be, which is being addressed in our intervention and teaming structures. So looking at growth scores, this is a 3-year weighted average of value-added growth, most heavily weighted on the current year. So Wisconsin uses a value-added model which measures growth against students in Wisconsin who have similar scoring histories with the same demographic needs. The score is based on the average of all students enrolled for the full year who participated in the previous year testing. So again, when we look at, you can see our growth is all over the place from school to school. So in looking at that, we want to make sure that we are focusing in on the students who need those additional supports, and we want to make sure that if a student is coming in at a below grade level, we are doing everything we can to make sure that they're moving closer to and not, or getting to being at grade level by providing those different interventions and resources. The target group, this is where this seems to at times confuse people, but hopefully I will do a good job of explaining it to make sense of it. So what is a target group? A target group measures the bottom 25% in each school based on their testing from the previous year. So we take our lowest 25% of scores. The area focuses on achievement, growth, chronic absenteeism, attendance, or rate of graduation. So you need at least 20 students from the previous year to create a target group. So why do we have those target groups? We want to, again, go back to ensuring that fairness. But when we look at the target group impact, when a report card is calculated, 75% of our students are measured 2 to 3 times. 25%, so that lowest 25% of our students are measured 3 to 4 times in the calculation. So the target group directly contributes to overall score by 40 to 45%. So if you go to the next slide, when you look at those weighted categories, where we looked at that sheet earlier, now consider the weighting. So we have 2 schools that didn't have a target group, which accounts for almost 40 to 45% of your report card, which are the lowest 25%. Now consider our other schools and how that came to be. So again, what they're trying to say is that we want to make sure that we're creating equality in doing our best to compare apples to apples. So we're going to take our lowest 25% and then compare that to other schools that might have similar demographics.
Okay,
So yeah, I know.
So Fairview and Parkview don't have, it's because they don't have 20 students?
They don't have 20 students that fall into that target group.
But the target group is?
The lowest 25%.
The lowest 20, well, we must have a lowest 25% in the school. So how can we not have a target group?
So
Is it because
the
they-
lowest of the overall grade?
So you take your 3rd and 4th grade, but now remember your 4th grade moved on to 5th grade and your 3rd grade hasn't tested. So essentially you're taking your 4th grade. You need to have 20 kids that fall into that target group category. And again, this is where we could talk all night, and the books and explaining how that comes to be are very thick and how they create. I don't know if you have anything with the target group and how those kids are.
No, it is confusing because I know what you're talking about math-wise, but Dina, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as 3rd and 4th grade and then 4th grade leaving, and then how many students do we have in that section and going from there. But yeah, I don't want to.
So if I'm understanding, the reason we don't have it is because you need comparable data of 20 students, right? Or,
That's how I understand it.
so if we didn't have comparable, if we only had 19 students, then we don't get a target group.
Correct.
Right?
Right. So because we're looking at the social economic disadvantage, so they might not have enough of those students that fall into the category.
Well, I thought this category is just the 25% of your population.
No.
No.
it's a determined group. So what I feel is important is I can go into our WISE data system, and I have, and I'm going to be working with the principals on this, is I know who those kids are. I can print out those kids, and we can now take those kids and compare them to what our current interventions are to determine, are those kids, you know, like this one assessment is telling us that these kids have high needs. Are those needs being met? Do our assessments show the same thing? Because again, this is one test on a given day at a given time. Is our assessments telling us the same? And how are we addressing those students? But I think the most important thing is to remember, we want to focus on all of our students. These bottom 25% are important, but all of our students are important. So creating systems that are addressing all needs is just as important. But this helps us to provide stronger supports in identifying those kids.
Unless your kid is at Parkview or Fairview, right?
I still can identify who those lowest kids are.
Okay.
They just didn't come into the calculation of the report card score.
Also says they
I
could
think-
be here from the previous year, and maybe they were not. They could only be here.
So you don't have the longitudinal data to do the comparison, so therefore they don't do the comparison on that
Right.
page.
That might be why they're not in the target group, or they don't have one.
And whether that group is represented on the state report card, the assessments that we are doing, the screeners that we are doing, identifies those students for us internally, regardless of whether there's 5 or 500 kids in a school.
Okay.
And they are part of our intervention system to fill gaps and make sure that we are hopefully accelerating their achievement levels even beyond the norm.
Okay.
I know. On track to graduation, a strength. So, a major strength. But again, there's always room for improvement, and that goes back into our teaming structures. So the high school, all of our grade levels talk about that. This includes our chronic absenteeism, our graduation rate, and our school attendance. And like I mentioned, I was in a meeting today, and we talked about attendance, and we talked about our different processes and how we can help support. Our school social worker and the principal or the counselors often go to visit homes. We have our marks. If you're gone more than 5 days unexcused or 10 days excused even, we're going and making visits to make sure that we can provide any supports we need to get those kids in school where we want them to be.
What happens if they don't?
Truancy, you can give handouts, truancy citations. We have a great relationship with our city attorney or a city judge, so that if parents are willing to make attempts, they can keep that citation open. And then if they do get their kids to school on a regular basis, that they'll close it and they won't have to pay that citation. Obviously, it's not a process we like to take, but sometimes it's the only process that we have to get kids to school. But we do have other things, many interventions prior to that. Building those strong relationships, whether it's finding a big brother, big sister, or there's lots of different ways. So, celebrations. High achievement in math. Across the district, math achievement scored 76.1, higher than the state average. This reflects a strong foundational instruction alignment in our math, especially evident in our elementary schools, but definitely, we're still working and growing. Middle school and high school, we've been putting a lot of emphasis in our math departments and creating solid expectations and providing supports where needed. High graduation rate and strong on-track indicators, so 97.4% graduation rate remains a major pride point, far exceeding the state average.
What is the state?
Oh, I'd have to dig back. I've been talking a long time.
91.9?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then overall rating, we replace at meets, very close to exceeds, but it shows that we have the stability in our core academics performance across K-12. Our achievement remains a strength, scoring 72, which is it's higher than nearly 69% of the districts in Wisconsin. It's great to celebrate, but it's more important to work on your growth. And actually, most of the areas of growth that I have listed have been shared previously. I think I shared them during our, in August, when I shared out the forward report. So I talked about a lot of this already in our KPI. I'm going to just quickly breeze over. But implementing our teaming structures, I talked a lot about that during our KPI and how we have a lot of great things in place. We still have a lot of a ways to go, but we're on a good track with that. Monitoring our data that's happening during those teaming meetings. We have CISA in. We're working with our administrators, and it's really a true team process. Strengthening our tier 2 and 3 interventions, especially in ELA. That is actually now all levels through 9th grade. We're really working hard in implementing those structures. I apologize, it didn't hit down, so implementing in HMH our new reading curriculum with fidelity, and we have a really strong system in place to provide all the supports that we can and really monitor that and support our students and staff. Continue to implement Act 20. One thing I'd like to point out within those bullets is that I know last year, I believe it was Tony who pointed out, like the state has a 25 percentile and below get a personalized reading plan at the state level. And Tony brought up a good question, well, what about the kid who's at 27? And we absolutely agree with Tony and all of you, because you all agreed with that. And so we have created a district reading plan. So we're not satisfied with saying that 25 percentile is okay. And it's almost like it's a little bit of a moving target, because over the years you've seen the data, like some classes are higher than others. It's just the makeup of the group, and it's just how it is. So in some, I think it was at a middle school math team meeting a few weeks ago, and they were like, well, we're looking at 35 to 40 percentile puts them into an intervention, because that's just where the kids are at. Those are where the lowest kids fall. So we look at the grade that they're in and where those needs fall. But those district reading plans go home just like the state ones, with saying that we have concerns, these are the strategies we want to work on, this is where your next steps fall. And then strengthening math instruction and supports. Interestingly, we've started a little bit of work on our personalized math plans, and now the state has an assembly bill, which I know it's been introduced. I'm not sure where it is on the floor as they start meeting, but it's Assembly Bill AB 615, and essentially it mimics Act 20, but in math. So it would have that math, personalized math plan. So we're gonna maybe slow play this one a little bit to see if the state does push this out. It sounds like there's pretty good chance of that happening, and I'm honestly all for it. So we'll see what happens there. If it doesn't go through, we will make sure that we create our own and have those expectations. All right, any questions?
So I'm trying to correlate between the district KPIs and these forward exam state report cards, right? And I'm just trying to figure out, like, what are we measuring against? Because I can't find anything that is similar to what's here versus what's here. So are we using? Like, because if we look at our KPI scorecard, it says that we're, for achievement in ELA and math, we're using the forward exam for grades 3 through 8th. Mm-hmm. Right, so that should be this data here, right? But where can it be found on the report card?
Well, the report card's we are going to see what our achievement is in math and ELA on the forward exam. And for example, I think it was those that were advanced and proficient last year. We were at 61.3% in math, and the board set a goal of 65% of our kids falling into those two categories. So that's going to come directly from the forward, which feeds into the report card.
Okay, so
But
the-
you're not going to see it directly, right.
You're not going to.
Okay, so you cannot use, you can't use the blue achievement
Right.
and say that should, because that makes it look really good, right? I'm kind
Right,
of thinking like,
and-
why is our goal so low?
Right, and I think, I mean, we're seeing it this year, where the state report card changed. And 3 or 4 years ago, it had changed at that time as well. So by doing this and taking the data directly from the assessment itself, whether or not the state report card changes, we know we can be apples to apples year in and year out. And that's what we're after.
But that's not publicly available.
Well, it's on our website.
It's on your website.
Yeah.
And you can go to the WISE-public portal, and it's there.
To get the actual test score results? Okay.
So our report card is a much more stable assessment than trying to use the state report card, because the state report card seems to change with the seasons, and you can't use it year after year.
Right. And that's why we want to make sure we're looking at multiple different assessments. That's why I come in and I share the iReady, or we share the Ames Web, because we want to share various data points that are standardized, but we don't want to fall on one sole assessment.
And then chronic absenteeism, does that correlate at all to the scorecard? Chronic absenteeism?
That one will,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's taken directly.
Yeah, and that's one of those that it is comparable to previous years. Can't really skew that. You don't have to weight that data.
Okay.
That's straight
Well,
up. what it is.
graduation rate too would be, yeah. But
So- Cool. So as a district, that one is not, that one is below our goal. Our goal is 90%, it came in at 84.8% as a district.
But this is last year's. Well,
Yeah.
our goal is for
Next year.
next year's, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So this is kind of what we based our goal off of.
Yes.
That box,
Is that right?
for whatever reason, that bubble wasn't filled in, I guess, then.
Are we referencing the state report card on our website? Ms.
Yes,
Jamie's on.
legally you have to.
Right, and then can we, in our footnotes there, like, here's the state report card, but here's our tracking of our internal achievements?
Do you mean our scorecard?
Well, that's why I'm wondering if it links to that, so like, here's the state report card, but here's our, like, our
Yeah,
house
our
report card?
KPIs, right, this
Of
is.
how we track it without all the weights in the background?
And I can talk to Jamie about that. Both are on the website, but I'm not sure that they're like, you don't have a
Right.
screen where they're side by side.
Right,
You
well,
know,
there's something that explains to the public, like, oh, here's a state report card, but those numbers are so many weighted formulas in the background. And here's how we are tracking our personal growth.
yeah, I'll
in-house
follow
or
up with
something like
Jamie on that. I'm sure we can do, if nothing else, something that will heighten the clarity of it.
Right. That helps.
And I know these things changed. But even though everything changed, when we look at our schools last year on the report card, were we meeting expectations? Or, I thought Riverview was only at, was it meeting expectations or?
I can't remember.
Below. I thought we were below.
Below?
At River. But I'm just curious if using different metrics now that maybe something that was hidden is uncovered and, is there something? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to look at the overall score, but
Right.
what's important is looking at what makes it and breaking it down and looking at, like I said, those teaming structures are looking at the chronic absenteeism. They're looking at those interventions and where those gaps fall. They're looking, those target groups. We're looking at all of those pieces to make sure that we're seeing that growth.
Right. Yeah, when you, I mean, I'm just looking at overall, how are we comparing, where are we hitting, and the averages. This actually seems to suggest that Riverview has improved
Yes.
where it's falling in,
Yes.
at least in achievement compared to
Previous.
where we've been. So,
And I would say yes.
but,
And Dina, you can speak to this as well, obviously, but many of our statewide meetings regarding the report card, the results, and so on, it has been said over and over again that you cannot compare last
year to
year
the next.
to this year, which frankly is a source of frustration because we thirst for that longitudinal data to look at our growth.
right.
And yet, if you read headlines from across the state, you will see it pretty prevalent that, report cards for this district, for example, or this school, Riverview, what have you, increased from last year to this year. But you can't compare the two, so,
Right. Yeah.
Do we know where we fall as a county comparative to the other districts in the county?
Yeah, I heard maybe Sheboygan Press had something out the other day, but I haven't seen it. I think we're middle of the pack right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's information, right? And it's not, unfortunately, it's published information that, how do you interpret? It's going to go out to the public will see it. Of course, we want to exceeds expectations, right? It's good to know we're above the state average for the most part, but we want to be better than that, right? We want to be top school, the most attractive school. And, I mean, looking at this year, Fairview is knocking it out of the park. And I was at the community meeting and parents were concerned about sending their kids to Fairview. Well, if you read this, you gotta be sending your kids to Fairview, so. It is frustrating, but thank you for taking us through this information. And I think our action plans on what we're doing and what we're doing with individuals and how we can engage parents to be part of our academic action plans, I think that goes a lot farther than.
Yes.
And I would argue that there is still very useful information here, information that we are utilizing, and the work that Dina and so many others are doing in the classroom and beyond. We will see the fruits of those labors, but right now we have a lot of people working very hard within the newly created structures. That, to us, is very exciting.
Right.
To see where the needle moves.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but we need a couple of years behind this report card before we can really have any sort of data to look at. So holding on to our report cards, our KPIs, and paying attention to those, at least it gives us some longitudinal data that we can look at. So-
And remember, when I do give those triannual reports, I do the longitudinal data of those individual.
Of those
classes.
individual programs.
So we can see the growth there.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, that's right. So, okay. Anything else for Dina?
take a drink of water over there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm going to take a drink of water for you, actually, so.
I think Kurt's shaking in his boots a little bit because they're supposed to record the basketball game. He said I talked too much. He's going to tell me I talked too much tonight.
Yeah, we've got people leaving here, so finance, buildings and grounds, consider gifts and corresponding budget adjustments.
Yeah, I'll take that one, thank you. We would ask the board to consider the following budget adjustment: a donation of $12,000 from James Feeney to be used for Plymouth Girls Golf Program to purchase a golf simulator.
Okay,
That is the loan adjustment for this evening.
oh, okay. I need a motion to accept the
I'll make a
gift
motion to accept the gift
and corresponding budget
and
adjustment.
corresponding budget adjustments.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I'll second.
All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed? All right. Public participation? Jerry?
Scott, I'm sorry, I have to jump ahead of you a little bit in my first comment. About the cell phone. I've studied that for the last several years. Top neuropsychologists are saying that it's been causing a problem in our schools with our children. It's affecting the brain. So to the point of 1 out of 4 kids in school today are experiencing depression, anxiety, suicide thoughts, and the whole bit. So it's more than just maybe something. It's definitely something that has occurred. Now, because of my time, I'll keep going. Sal, you and I have been through this before. I was at the last meeting where you talked about restructuring and everything. Remember when we closed down Cascade? That's, I think, what's going to be your initial, your option here also. I'm thinking about dividing the city into 3 districts, 3 schools that go from K through 8. And I based that based upon not only people that when I looked at your surveys and everything, what people are concerned about dropping out their kids and all that kind of stuff, most are looking for all their kids in one school. Plus, people that I talked to, mothers, specifically about the same thing, they like the idea of K through 8 plus one school having everything. So my main impetus would be, I think, if you look at developing maybe 3 of the schools to go K through 8, I think we might have something. It may cost money for each of those 3 schools, but I think that might be the viable solution, possibly. And as far as Dean's report, and respect your intelligence and all that type of stuff. I graduated in 61, some of you may have heard this before, I graduated in 61 from high school. We just recently, the state of Wisconsin, lowered the standards again, 6 times. 6 times they've lowered our standards because we aren't doing well. I think it's about 10 years ago, there was an article in the SchBd Press from the University of Wisconsin-Madison about the quality of the students. They came right out and said 1/3 of our students shouldn't even be here. They're that bad. And then I also find out that Harvard has remedial algebra classes. Harvard. Can you beat that? It's unbelievable. And I know when I was taking classes at UW-Sheboygan, we had remedial algebra, remedial English all the time. I tried to get into remedial algebra because I wanted to get into a physics class. I couldn't get in. It's filled with high school students. So we've got a problem with education. And that's got to be the impetus. We have got to think education. Forget about the sports, and that's another thing. When I talk to so many parents, how are your kids doing? Oh, they're doing all right. What's their GPA? Oh, I don't know. But they can talk a whole lot about baseball, basketball, football, and everything else. How are these kids going to survive in this world of high technology unless they get a good education? It's beyond me. I hope I didn't exceed.
Almost.
Thank you.
So Jerry, I totally agree with you about the cell phone issue. And of course, that's going to be up to every family what they do with that. But there's a book called The Anxious Generation, and it's all about kids having cell phones. And quite a few years ago, I read a book, and it was thick, on what being on screen actually does to the brain, how it actually rewires it. It's not good.
And I know there's some parents that say, oh, we have to have our child carry their phone with them all the time. I have to be able to contact them if they're in class or anything. I mean, are you kidding me? What happened years ago? We didn't have phones and we survived.
I know, I understand. I love my cell phone, and it's so awkward if I don't have it with me. And I'm like, 20 years ago, you know?
I think mine with me, but mine hasn't been on all day. I'm still here.
Yeah, you survived.
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Jerry.
Jerry. Appreciate it.
Time's up.
And with that, we'll move on to board liaison reports. Sally?
Community ed, indoor track walking is is happening in our big new addition. That's from 5:30 to 7, Monday through Thursday, and 4 p.m. till 6. It is free. You need to enter door 18, go into the fitness center to get an access badge to be able to get in there. Otherwise, just the regular hall walkings is Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. till 8, Fridays, 3 p.m. till 6. Tomorrow night, if you want to get out and about, there's a free movie located here in the auditorium. There's no charge, but do call and register so they know about how many people's coming, so they will show it. If nobody registers, they will cancel it. On November 24th, the Riverview students, grades 7th and 8th anyway, can join into the lifting weights. It's free, but they need to register also. And then over at Riverview, we have family rock climbing. So get your kids out there. You need to register by December 1st, and this will take place on December 6th. There is a cost to it, but if you sign up early, you're going to save some money. That's all.
Good. Thank you, Sally.
Have you ever tried to climb that rock wall? It is hard. So it's a good workout.
Great. Foundation, Janelle.
The foundation met last week, and again, it's a fun group to be in, as Scott will attest to, that we had 17 people at our meeting, which is pretty awesome that the group is a large bunch. We had a student, a senior, Riley McCulley, shared a presentation of a review of, we had given her, Education Foundation had given her funds to help get to Spain for a summer. So she spent a couple weeks in Spain and just shared all the wonderful experiences she had there. So it was good to hear from the students back. We also, as a reminder to teachers, that the Education Foundation gives out little mini grants. So if a teacher or somebody needs assistance in the room for a larger project, maybe they're helping create the garden in the backyard of the school or something, they can apply for a mini grant. So reminder, teachers and staff apply for the mini grants. In Homecoming Land, we collected and had penny and change wars, and all those funds are used to fulfill teacher wish lists. So if you're a parent thinking of what can I get my teacher, the teachers of all, and the Education Foundation has a list of 85 teachers have made their wish list. So if you're a parent, you can go on to our school's website and find the wish list for a teacher, so you don't need to figure out what to buy the teachers. The teachers have put their wish list out there. So that really helps a lot. And the Education Foundation is going to fulfill as many as they can with all the money they raised with the penny wars and change wars. And as another little side fundraiser, the Education Foundation partners with the continuing education, the tech students. So they've created ornaments that are for sale, and you can click online on Facebook and order them for your favorite student or all your students, and actually for graduates too. So these are on sale. The Facebook link is probably the easiest way to get to the ornament sales, but they're $21 each. And they're designed and made by our students, and the profits go split between the foundation and the continuing education, or the CPE kids in the tech program.
Okay.
So they're doing exciting things.
Great.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and that mini grant program, I really like that, so hopefully the staff is taking advantage of it, so. All right, thank you. And then family resource, Kathy?
Alongside the regular programs, Bring Your Own Baby, which is December 9th at the Mead Public Library, Tiny Tots Playgroup, December 11th at the Plymouth Library, and the Biddy Book Club is December 16th at the Mead Library. Those are their ongoing monthly programs. They also have coming up the last Triple P, Positive Parenting Programs Informed Workshop, and that is December 11th at the Mead Library. And the topic is supporting your child with overcoming fears. And in December, they also have the second annual Jingle and Mingle Festival, which is a family-friendly day of holiday magic, free hot breakfast, 8 to noon, free photos with Santa, and they'll have like different music programs that is free, and that is Saturday, December 6th at Generations. A little bit of a quieter month coming up, but we do have those two events going on. For more information, you can go to familyresourcesheboygan.org and get all the information, times, dates, and places.
All right, great. Thank you, Kathy.
Yep.
School board tours, Scott?
Yeah, last year, if you'll recall, in February, we took tours of our buildings with school board members who were interested. Feedback was very positive, but one of the primary ideas coming out of that is it was a little rushed. We'd like to keep it to a morning, but perhaps we focus this year on our elementary level, and we could alternate, 1 year elementary, next year secondary, just to make sure we're maybe a little more slow-paced and able to stay in classrooms a little bit longer. Is that something the board would be interested in doing again this February? And if so, I would, start working on finding some dates to have people coordinate.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love the tours. They
absolutely.
were great.
Great, okay, we will begin working on that.
Good, thank you. Personnel, staff's support update?
Support staff update, again, no action needed, just an update for the board. Brittany Maxwell has been hired as a special education aide at Fairview Elementary School. Amariana Locke has been hired as a special education aide at Fairview as well. Azriel Burge has been hired as a teacher and special education aide at Horizon Elementary School. And Samantha Nukruma has been hired as a cook and server at Parkview Elementary School.
All right, thanks, Scott. Travel.
I can take that one? Thank you. You betcha. We asked the board to consider the out-of-state travel request from Jessica Barrington, teacher at Riverview Middle School, to take high school students to Germany. The potential travel dates are June 3rd or 4th, 2026, through June 22nd, 2026. Students may miss 1 to 2 days of school. Okay. And this meets all our requirements. Yes. So we need a motion to consider, or,
I make a motion that Jessica Barrington is allowed to take Riverview Middle School students to take high school students to Germany in 2026.
I'll second.
all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, thank you. President's report. We've had a long evening here. Thank you, Dina.
So I'm just going to touch just briefly on the meetings, community meetings we had regarding how to handle the declining enrollments that we are facing. They were great meetings, great public participation. Some energy at the beginning of those meetings. People thought decisions were being made and we were making those decisions without them. Truth of the matter is, we were putting ideas out there, putting it out to the public, so to get feedback, to get ideas. Just like tonight, Jerry, you just came forward with another idea.
we aren't trying to operate in a vacuum. We're trying to have a conversation with the community, and we had great community conversations. And we'll continue to engage with the community and have conversations about what we can do, what we should do, and what's the best approach. It's not easy, and we're trying to consider every single angle to do the very, very best for creating experiences that allow our kids to be their best. So that's what we're doing, and please, let's just keep the tenor where it is and have good conversations going forward. So, and with that, I'll move it to superintendent.
All right, we've got some celebrations and then a few upcoming events. Celebrations, here we go. 6 students in Mrs. Lund's Advanced Culinary Arts class passed the Year 1 Serve Safe exam. It's an industry-recognized certification. It's good for 5 years and another feather in the cap of our students before they even leave us. Mrs. Smith reported that our choir was invited back to nationals at Carnegie Hall. Again, this places our choir in the top 10% of the nation, so kudos to Mrs. Smith and all of our talented kids. Congratulations to our state qualifying divers and swimmers. Jacqueline Lensmeyer qualified in diving. And then our 400-free relay, Cora Cowig, Adela Gritt, Naomi Oakes, Claudia Purvis, and Mary Purvis. Congratulations to them. You may have read PHS construction students helped renovate the Nut Hill Shelter, a great collaboration between Mr. Biller, his kids, and the community. 2 Riverview students, Sydney Weber and Morgan Struve, were selected to participate in the State Honors Music Project, so that is quite an honor for them, and they get to perform and receive feedback from some very high-profile individuals, so a great accomplishment for them. Addie Arnold, the senior, wrote and directed Plymouth's One Act, which is advancing to state competition later this week. Good luck to Addie. Football team, 11-1 they finished up, advanced to level 3 playoffs. Just a fantastic season, and a special mention for head coach Mark Goldrecht, was recognized as the conference head coach of the year in his first year. So he would be the first one to tell you that it is a group accomplishment, but his leadership was paramount to all the accomplishments this year, so congratulations to him. And then lastly, for celebrations, Veterans Day is an incredible celebration in our district. All of our sites, all of our schools had assemblies. The participation was fantastic. These assemblies, while staff are critical to their organization, the involvement of our students is truly remarkable. You look at our high school assembly, for example, and I would say north of 70 students participated in that assembly itself. So a great day to recognize the dedication of our veterans. Upcoming events, no school the day before Thanksgiving on November 26th. We have a professional development day on December 5th, so students will have that day off, but we certainly will not. And then please check our website because we have holiday concerts coming up, and just about any night you want to do something fun, we've probably got something going on. So looking forward to that.
Great. Thanks, Scott. All right. And there's a lot to be thankful for, right? And it's Thanksgiving coming up next week. Thank you all. Thank you to the community. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to the administration. This is a great place to be. This is a great school district. And you are all very much appreciated. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.